Don't Shoot. Recorded live.
Hello, everybody. This is William Hayashi speaking. You are listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Series, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. Today's edition is the June 14th, 2013 edition, and our special guest today is Gerald Dean Rice. Do you use all three names, Gerald?
Yeah, so far as writing, No.
Usually you only hear all three names when you're a serial killer. You ever notice that?
Yeah, because they want to make sure that.
Yeah, but Gerald is a pretty interesting guy, has a lot of information about electronic publishing, is a published author in his own right, and as he said before we started out, he's coming to us from Detroit. How are things up there today?
Pretty good. Nice weather today. Nice and quiet before everything turns roasting in a couple weeks. Yeah,
it seems like we're having a much longer spring than normal, at least down here in Chicago. I don't know how. I would imagine it's not too hot up there yet, is it?
No, not yet. Not yet. We had a couple hot days and then kind of backed off.
Yeah, we had some 80s in March, which is crazy because then, of course, you have the lighter complected people out there running around in shorts, and then, in denial of it getting cold again, they keep doing it until, I don't know. Anyway, so let me ask you this. Did you grow up in that area, or did you immigrate to that area? Where did you grow up?
Oh, yeah, I'm from Detroit. I grew up, born in Detroit, raised in Highland Park, and I still live in the area.
And you mean is Highland Park like a suburb of the city there?
It's a city that's entirely within Detroit.
Okay.
There are two cities that are inside of Detroit, Highland Park and Hamtramck.
And now, I noticed that you have written a lot of things on your own. Did you get the bug to write early? What kind of childhood did you have that may have pushed you into doing what you're doing today?
Well, my influences were, probably my mother. My mother, let's see, when I was little, she took me to see all kinds of age-inappropriate movies.
Okay.
I saw Creepshow when I was in kindergarten. I saw The Howling. I saw The Thing. All kinds of movies like that. And, when I got to, I don't know, around 10 or 11, she slapped my first Stephen King book in my hand, and I was just gone from there. I'd read all the time. I'd read in class rather than paying attention to whatever the teacher was telling me, and then the teacher calls on me, and I'm shuffling to try to come up with an answer because I wasn't paying attention. And I've never read books in my age group. I always read adult books as a child, and it was primarily horror. And I got to a point where I said, I don't want to just read these stories. I want to write these stories because sometimes they go in the direction I didn't want them to go in. I said, well, what if this happened instead of that? And
right.
I eventually just leapt from there.
So about how old were you when you first started writing? And I'm guessing you wrote short stories first?
Yes, I wrote short stories first. I'd say in high school I started writing. My best friend and I were heavily into comic books. We read a lot of Marvel stuff, a lot of Image stuff, and we wanted to write comic books. He was the artist, I was the writer, and we started cranking out comic book stories, and didn't have any idea of how to get them to the people who would publish these stories. So we just had all these stories and nothing to do with them. And
did you share them with your friends?
Oh yeah. I let my friends,
okay.
But we just, outside of the people we knew, we didn't know how to get them to the people who actually would have needed to read these stories.
Right.
And you're a senior in high school, and reality hits, and everybody's telling you, you're not going to earn a living from writing. You need to figure out something more practical, something that people actually have use for. And I decided I wanted to go to engineering school. There's a school in Flint. Flint is a city about 60 miles away from Detroit. Yeah. And I hated engineering. I did it for 2 semesters and decided, this is not for me. I dropped out for about 5 years. and decided to go back to school. Got my associates in English, then got a bachelor's in English. A few years ago, I had my first novel published, and it was just history from there.
Well, that's not bad. I mean, how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 36.
So that was not a real big span between the time when you started to work, and then, of course, you went on that little hiatus, but then you came right back at it. And about how long ago did you get your first work published?
My first work, I'd say, was probably published, 2001, 2002. I had some short stories published on my first sale. Someone paid me for something I wrote. Was 2001, 2002. It was an e-zine called Alien Fiction Magazine. It's not around anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I really loved that place because they wouldn't just reject your story. They would reject your story and give you feedback. Well, you could do this to make it better. You could do that. You could change this. You could remove these words or put more of this in. And that kind of feedback was so starkly different than what everybody around me was saying. You know, everybody around you, I'm pretty sure if you're a writer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you give your story to a friend of yours or a coworker, they just say, hey, I liked it. That was nice. Like, well, what did you like? And they can't really give you specifics, and they definitely don't give you feedback as to what could be better about it. Mm-hmm. And so you just stagnate it if you give your story to only those people. But, you know, that e-zine, they helped me by leaps and bounds because they told me, hey, this is not good enough to be published because that's what's wrong with your story. And I'd actually, when I first wanted to write for publication, I sent the story to Cemetery Dance, and it took a really long time before they responded. It took, I think, 9 months before they responded. I thought I'd written something so original, so mind-blowing that everybody would love it, and, you know, you'd see me all over the place. At the time, I had no idea that it was not original in the least because I just wasn't well-read enough. I hadn't learned at that point that to be a good writer, you have to also be a good reader. You have to read a lot. You have to see what's in your genre, what's outside of your genre. You have to be able to appreciate what has already been written and take the next step from there.
So, I mean, it sounds as though here was a publication that actually gave you some editorial information that helped you become a better writer, and that could also be one of the reasons why they may not have been able to stand the test of time. But it did give you some inspiration because it gave you some guidance, right?
Absolutely. It was a really great website because, you know, they were the kind that still would put their hands on the writers as opposed to the places that will give you the form letter if they give any kind of response at all. Right.
And so that wasn't that long ago. And how much? Well, let me ask you this: how many books have you published since then?
Well, my first novel was published in 2010. It was a book called The Ghost Toucher.
Okay.
I felt it was important for me. I'm not saying that anybody else has to do it the way I did it, but for me, I wanted to know, is my work good enough for someone to look at it and say, I want to put that out? Mm-hmm. I did that. You know, I wrote my novel starting in January of 2009, but prior to writing my first novel, I didn't know how to plot. I tried to start many books before and always wrote myself into a corner, didn't know how to get out of it, didn't know what my character was supposed to do next. I was just completely lost. And then one day, I just was in a conference. I was pretty much doing the same thing I did in class. Rather than paying attention to what the person up front was telling me, I was doing my own thing. But I was plotting. I just said, hey, just write out everything you want to have happen in this story. That's what I did. Right. And I used that as my skeleton, and I was just surprised that I felt several times, hey, this is the point where I would be lost. I wouldn't know what to do, whereas I could just look at that plot, and I could say, oh, well, this is what's supposed to happen next. And I found that even though I had a plot, I leapt off from there. I would do things that I didn't have originally plotted.
Right.
And I even had to go back and insert a character. I had something that was kind of diverging from my plot, and it meant that I had to have this whole new character in, and I had to rewrite certain chapters to put this person in there. And I wrote it. Started in January 2009. I finished it around my birthday at the end of December. I went through my redrafts, and I used to use Duotrope back then, and I found 3 publishers that would accept a submission from a writer who didn't have an agent.
Right.
I submitted to 2 of them. First one got back to me and said, "Hey, we really like what we read so far. Can you give us 2 weeks to consider it, see if we want to publish it?"
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Sure, I have nothing else that I need to be doing with it." And so I gave them the 2 weeks. They got back to me at that last day or day after or day before, and they said, "We want to publish this." And in that space of time, one of the other 2 publishers said they wanted to take a look at it too, but, I'd already held it out. But I felt pretty good knowing that, hey, these guys, they want to publish it. They like it. Okay, so I have reached that level to where I can write something that people would want to read outside of people I know. And after I did that, I decided, okay, so now that I've done that, I want to be my own publisher. Because anybody who's a writer knows, you go to a publisher, you're on the low end of the totem pole so far as profit sharing off of your book. The publisher's going to get the lion's share. They're also doing all the legwork, or ideally majority of the legwork, but they're getting an overwhelming majority of the profit off of your book. So I said, I want to be my publisher. I want to make money off me rather than having somebody else make money off of me. And I just started researching, and when I really started getting into it is when Kindle started becoming huge. Smashwords was becoming huge. Nook was becoming huge, and I found that it was super easy to do it. And I said, I want to run with this. I want to be my own publisher.
And so when you did that, did you create your own publishing imprint, or did you just self-publish, retain the rights? I mean, how did you go about doing that?
Well, I formed an LLC. My company is Razorline Press. I wanted to, make sure I had myself protected so that, if at some point someone said, "Hey, you took something of mine, you're not suing me, you sue my company," I'm going to fight you because I'm not going to steal anybody's stuff, but I'm not going to also have myself and my family be on the table for that. And so I just figured it all out for myself in the end. Like, how do you do this? Like, creating a cover, making sure your work is edited so that it doesn't look sloppy when people read it. Not publishing, marketing your work. I knew nothing about any of that stuff. I could edit. Any writer is also an editor, but editing your own work is another thing. But there's tricks to the trade for that, even if you have to do it yourself.
Right. All right. So I mean, for people who are listening in, if you want to take a look, you can go to razorlinepress.com, which is the website for that. And how long has the site been up?
I've had this site for a little over a year. I had a different site that I started when my first book was published. It used to be, well, it still is up, I would imagine. I just haven't gone there in a really long time. But I've had it for a little more than a year, and I got my about page. I got a books page, and I was doing a stream of consciousness story called Deathmate that I'm probably going to come back to because it turned out a little bit better than I was expecting. Just I didn't have the time to dedicate to it, so I had to put it on a temporary hiatus. But I do have on my site, I did a little test for myself. I dictated an entire story into my phone.
Okay.
and I put it up on my site, and I'm just seeing what people think about it, and I might wind up doing something with it. I'm thinking I might publish it and donate a portion of the profits to a charity like the Humane Society or something. I still haven't figured all that out because I just published the story Wednesday, and I just started writing it last Friday, so I haven't even thought that far ahead yet.
Okay. One of the things that you have published, and I'll ask you in a second, is how to publish on Kindle, Smashwords, and Nook the Easy Way. Is this just an e-publication, or is this also available in print?
It's only available as an ebook. Because I wanted to have something that I felt was low cost. In my mind, I'm targeting someone who's trying to use the path of least resistance to publish. Someone who's fresh out the box.
Sure.
I know what a computer is, and that's it. Help me to go from there. That's who this book is aimed at, and it's also aimed at people who have published before, and you want to do it yourself, and you don't really know what to do so far as marketing, because I've hit a lot of bumps along the road, found out things that don't work, found out things that do work, and I'm offering my tips, things that work for me, that I get the maximum effect out of.
Right. And what kind of success have you seen with this? How many downloads, and also what kind of feedback have you gotten on it?
I'm still waiting on some reviews. I've gotten some feedback from people on Twitter saying, "Hey, I got the book." I'm actually doing some companion workshops to go along with this book. I've already done one at a local library. I have another one coming up next month. And you said you're in Chicago, right?
Correct.
Okay, I've been targeting Chicago, but I haven't heard back from them yet. But I am going to be in St. Joseph in September.
Which is, for people who don't know, which is right across the lake from us, not far at all. And it's not a far drive. When the show is over, I have a lead to an independent bookstore, an independent Black-owned and operated bookstore who might be interested in having you in for an event. So please remind me about that a little bit later. And then, of course, when you come down to Chicago, I'll have to come see you since, it is where my city is, So anyway, you said that you don't have any reviews yet. How long has this book been out? This ebook been out?
In the last month.
Okay.
So far it's been going pretty well. I a couple months ago. Do you self-publish at all, William?
Yeah, I did. I was a first-time author, and when I was shopping around the manuscript actually would have been out to about 750 pages. So a first-time author with a book that long is probably never going to find a publisher unless it's something really remarkable. And I didn't want to fool myself and think it was really remarkable. And then even when I had it edited down to 500 pages, that's still a
long book, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And the other component for me is I had the good or bad sense, whichever you look at it, to put, volume 1 of a trilogy on the front of the book. So if you're a publisher, you kind of want to know, well, what are all 3 books going to be? Because one could be good and the other 2 could be bad, or, any variant of that. Or in the case of what I've written, excuse me for even butting this in, but, I wrote about, a bunch of very advanced African Americans who live on the backside of the moon in secret. And the whole series is about getting, discovering them there. And then all of a sudden, you have a publisher, or you have someone, a studio looking to option it for movies, and they're going, well, we like the first one, and the second and third one sound good, but if he has, these black folks come back to Earth and kill all the white people in America, that's a bad investment for us. So I'm I'm kind of in a holding pattern on that until I get the third one out. But I mean, one of the things that I am looking at is I'm toying with the idea of publishing electronically, except that most of the contracts that I have found for e-publishing give the right to publish in perpetuity to whomever the publisher is,
Right.
which makes it a less attractive proposition. Let's say I had all of my books, and this is something I want to ask you about. If all of my books are converted to, Kindle, and then Amazon makes me sign the contract, which allows them to distribute in perpetuity, I believe that makes my property or anybody's property less attractive for somebody like a HarperCollins or Tor or whomever would pick up a book of my genre. I think it makes it less financially attractive when they know that they don't have the exclusive e-publishing rights. What's your view on that?
Well, to my understanding, Amazon doesn't make you sign anything in perpetuity.
Okay. Go ahead.
At any point, I can go on Amazon and I can unpublish any of my books, and I can also say if a HarperCollins said, "Hey, we really like Fleshbags. We want to have the rights to that. We want to do a new cover on it. We want to, distribute it through our channels." I can unpublish it and then let them publish it. It's in their best interest for it to be in both formats, for it to be a physical in-print book and an e-book as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, so far, to my understanding, so far as Amazon's concerned, hey, we don't care who you have as the publisher. Still the same rates apply. Because it's a book that's $2.99. Whoever the publisher is gets 70% of that profit. Amazon gets 30%. That deal cuts the same for me as it does to HarperCollins, as it does to some small publisher who might publish it.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I have looked at a lot. I've looked at probably a dozen e-publishing contracts, and if I caution everybody, if you ever have to sign a contract, get a lawyer to look at it. I mean, that's a pretty simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't sign anything, and seriously, I think all but one of them stated that they retain the rights to publish in perpetuity, and I may have read something early from Amazon, and Amazon got a lot of feedback from people and said, okay, well, we can back off on that. And I don't want to name anybody specifically because I just don't remember from that far back, but it was something that I don't say to anybody not to do, but I admonish anybody, if you're ever going to sign a contract or any kind of agreement, have somebody who's smarter than you are look at it and make sure that your rights, your property, that you are protected and you're not hurting yourself. I mean, this is good
Right.
that you're here because you have the experience, plus you've written a book on it. And I think that anybody, like you said, anybody who's looking for entry-level publishing for an e-book, it sounds like your publication, what you've written, is a good start for people to take a look at exactly what the industry is about.
Yeah, by all means, take a look at it because, it'll show you exactly what you need to do to get it done. And there are certain things on there that I don't give the answer for. I just give the information, and I say, hey, do with it what you will, because there's things like DRM encryption, digital rights management. Some people, hey, that's bad. Some people think, hey, that's good. It's my book. I should have the right to say you can only look at it on this device. Some people think you shouldn't have that right. I point people in the direction to get the information, but I try to stay away from dictating or sermonizing as to the woes of digital rights management or hey, this is something everybody should do, because I think that's a decision that a person should become informed about and decide for themselves. I would never, personally, I would never be an advocate of signing away anything in perpetuity. That because for one, there's so many avenues that don't require that. But by the same,
there's a lot of options. Yes, you're right.
But still, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, probably 90% of authors who are published are never going to live the life of comfort from their writing that they like. But you don't know whether or not you will be in that 10% who will. And say if all of a sudden one day your book explodes and it makes millions upon millions of dollars, if you signed away your rights to it, and whereas you only get 10% of whatever that book makes, someone else is becoming a millionaire off your work. So I'm not an advocate of that. With my first book, I did sign a contract on it, and mine is a term of 5 years. So for the next 2 years, every time a physical book or an ebook sells of my work, my publisher is going to get whatever that amount is, 70% or whatever it is. I'm going to get 10% until the end of that contract. But once that contract ends, all rights revert to me. He no longer has the right to publish my work. Now, what I have to do is I have to buy a new cover because he paid for that cover. It belongs to him technically, but
sure,
the book belongs to me, and I can do whatever I want to at that point with it. I can sign a new contract with him if he's interested. I can sign a contract with someone else if they're interested, or I can, as my own publisher, put it out again and make all the profit off of it.
And the bottom line to all of this, again, is, if you are a content creator, whether it be comic book, whether it be, novel, movie, whatever, you have an obligation to do your business due diligence. And a lot of people kind of let that go because, in some instances, in many instances, creative types are not necessarily the most business-oriented people.
No, you absolutely.
But when you are creating content, you are a business, and unfortunately, if you can't do it, and it's too onerous on you to pay attention to what's going on in order for you to protect yourself, to go through the nuances of reading a contract, then you really have to get somebody to do that for you, because I'm sure you've got horror stories that you can tell that you've heard of. I mean, and tell a couple of them if you know. I mean, have you run into people who have gone and done the absolute wrong thing in getting themselves published in a rush to do it, or simply because they were ignorant of the whole business thing? Have you run into anything like that?
I haven't run into anyone who's had that happen to them, but the reason why I became interested in writing this book was, I would see on the internet companies that offered to take your manuscript and publish it for you. Not that they're your publisher, but that they would do all the legwork for you for a fee. And, one place I found was as high as $400. There might even be higher ones than that. Essentially,
sure,
all they're doing is exactly what you could do for free if you educated yourself on it. And so that's what prompted me to write this book, because once I learned the process for what I call the big three, Smashwords, Kindle, and Nook, I said this is something that is so simple that when I saw that there were people offering this as a service, a paid service, I couldn't think of it as anything but theft. To me it was, hey, let me take advantage of someone who's not computer savvy, of someone who feels like it's going to be too time consuming or whatever the circumstance is, and make a profit off of something that is literally going to take me minutes to do because they're not going to do it themselves.
Sure.
And, at first I was just blogging about it. I would just, I'd see like a post on Craigslist, and I would, be careful to take out the company name if they mention a company name, but just put their posting in and just pick apart everything that's wrong with what they're advertising.
Right.
And, I got to a point where, I blogged how to do it on Kindle, or how to do it on Nook, back before they changed their whole system. They have an entirely different website for e-publishing now.
Okay.
And I said, people need to know about this. People deserve to know before you sign a contract with the company that it's just going to take your man. Okay, say you don't know how to do it. You want to send your ebook to me, and I'm going to charge you $200 for it. I'm going to take your manuscript, and I'm going to put some legalese at the front of it saying that you have the rights to it, and The only thing I'm going to do so far as formatting of your book, I'm going to make sure that nothing is double-spaced, that all tabs have been taken out, no page numbers are on it, and
just some very rudimentary kind of electronic editing, very rudimentary.
Just basic stuff. And then I'm going to turn around and say, okay, go out and get yourself a cover. And then I'm going to say, make sure you use social media. Make sure you're on Facebook. Make sure you're on Twitter.
Right.
Make sure you're on Google+. And then I'm going to put out your book when you say you want it out with the cover that you paid for, and then set your account so you can get paid. That's
right.
all. That's all I can do for you. That's it. It's not like I can go. Now, I'm not saying anything against companies that do book promotion. So far as I'm concerned, that's a legitimate service. But for someone to just take your manuscript, format it, do whatever little bit of amount of formatting, and then publish it on a website, I think it's a ripoff for someone to charge you hundreds of dollars. Because honestly, if you had a manuscript, no matter how you have it formatted, so long as you had it edited, professional, it's edited to where you have basic good sentence structure. It's going to take me literally minutes to go from formatting to publishing. Minutes. And as soon as people know that.
And a lot of people don't know that. They don't know that. I mean, hang on a second. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Series, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the June 14th, 2003 edition, and we're talking to e-publishing maven Gerald Rice. And a lot of what you say makes so much sense, but there are so many people out there, and I've talked to a lot of writers since I've become a writer, and you look at the anxieties, you look at the expertise, there's a huge, huge, huge gap between those who know absolutely nothing and those who, pick it up very quickly. The marketing aspect is, that you said is true. It's the most responsible part, or at least the most onerous part of trying to get your work out there. It's the hardest part. But what you say about doing the electronic formatting and being able to do for yourself, I think that just that alone is a good reason for people to take a look at your ebook. And to remind people, it's How to Publish on Kindle, Smashwords, and Nook the Easy Way. If you want to take a look at some of Gerald's work and words, his website is Razor Line Press, razor like in shaving, line in press.com, and that's pretty much. Is that your home site, Gerald?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Where most everything you do comes out of there. I'm sure you do a little bit of social media too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. In this day and age, you're doing yourself a huge disservice if you're not taking advantage of social media.
Have you done any consulting to other people? Have you helped other people do this in a more formal way, or are you mostly kind of an informational blogger and people can catch can by looking at what you've got published online?
Well, like I said, I've been doing workshops. I've done one, got 2 more coming. Hopefully I'm going to line up some more in the very near future. And, I am hands-on, and in my book, or anyone who has it, I also have my email address there for people who have questions or comments.
Sure.
I'm not saying I know everything. If someone wants to email me and say, hey, you should talk about this, I would love to have that kind of feedback. I would absolutely love it. But if there's something that someone got stuck on that they didn't understand, or they felt I didn't explain in enough detail, I'd be happy to correspond with that person.
That's great. And something that I'd like to ask you to do is from here on out, whenever you are going to appear someplace, or where you may be speaking, where you may even just be going to see other people, if you could put it on the BSFS events calendar, so people who are interested in maybe connecting with you and maybe in the area, like when you come down to Chicago, I'm definitely going to hunt you up, which is a lot different than hunting you down. So but put those events up on the events calendar so people can go, hey, look at this. He's going to be nearby this weekend. I get to talk to him about whatever they want to talk about. And that way, I think that we help build and support a very supportive community.
Okay, absolutely. I will definitely take advantage of the events calendar.
That'd be great. So let's talk a little bit about your writing. You know, it looks like you like horror.
Yes.
In addition to helping people not throw away their money, which is also good. Tell me a little bit about how you got hooked in that. I mean, was it your mom's influence in bringing you to these things early and giving you the books that she gave you and things like that? That was what kind of brought that up for you?
Absolutely. I mean, that's where it came from for me. You know, my mother giving me a book at a young age, going to the bookstore like a couple times a month. There used to be B. Dalton. We used to go to B. Dalton all the time, and Walden Books, and you know, later on came to our area at least the Barnes and Nobles and Borders. I would buy books that I never got to because I hadn't finished my other books. You know, I would do what anybody does. You see a book that has a really good-looking cover, you read the back and go, oh, that's interesting. I want to buy this. I would get books for Christmas. Books for Christmas was is a fantastic gift for me. You know, I mean, some people might find that boring. I had to stop buying my wife books for her birthday and for Christmas because, you know, she was like, oh, it's predictable. You always buy me a book. But in my mind, I'm thinking, that's a fantastic gift.
Well, and it's not just a book. I mean, yes, physically it's a book, but I mean, you have such infinite variety of content.
Right.
Know? Well, hey, I'm not going to get between you and your wife about presents that you give, but, because I just don't. You know, one day I don't want to run into her and go, you know, you really should have kept your damn mouth shut. So but I mean, books for a child. I mean, once you got in the habit of reading, that had to be such a great thing because you had your imagination opened up, and it led you to where you are as a writer today. Tell us a little, Tell us a little bit about your about some of the stories. You know, you don't have to tell the story, but I mean, what is it that attracts you? What you know? Is it irony? Is it you know, what do you like best about what you write?
What I like best about what I write is, you know, I like I was saying before, I like the story to turn in different angles. I don't like to write the expected story. I don't want to write. I don't ever write a story that someone picks it up and they say, by page 3, I knew what was going to happen by page 50. I don't want people to feel that way. I don't want people to, because you get comfortable, and especially in my genre, I can't scare you if you can see it coming. I wanted to, you know, feel like, hey, that came from left field. I didn't expect that. So that unsettled me. I want to scare you. I want to unsettle you. I want you to feel like you read something unique, and I want you to want to come back for more, like any writer would.
And do you have a certain subject matter that you like, or are you pretty wide ranging? You know, I apologize in advance. I haven't read anything that you've done, but I have a hard enough time writing, let alone finding, you know, all. Well, you know how it is. I mean, I know how it is. Yeah.
The more I found myself writing, the more I find myself getting away from reading as much as I used to in the past. One of my favorite authors is F. Paul Wilson, and he's got something, the Repairman Jack series. I once I got hooked onto that series, every time a new book came out, I gobbled it up immediately. You know, I had to catch up. I bought paperbacks until I'd read the last one, and then every year or every other year when he'd come up with a hardcover, I'd buy it. And I still have not read the last one yet, and I've had it for over a year because I haven't had the time like I used to have. And I know what you mean. The genre that inside horror, the subgenre that I find myself coming to over and over again is zombies I don't know if I would say I'm a zombie author yet, because I have written a lot of things not having to do with zombies at all.
Right.
I would say for a long time I would have classified myself not as a horror writer, but as a weird writer, because I would read myself and say, this isn't scary, this is just strange.
I was going to use that word. I was going to wonder if it was like a strange tales kind of feel to it.
Yeah, I used to write a lot of strange. Not that I don't now, but I think I have made that infinitesimal leap into horror. I mean, I would say the two are closely related. I mean, you can't have mundane, normal things happening in horror stories all the time.
Right.
But I would say I'm trying to intentionally steer into other areas where I haven't written before. I try to make it uncomfortable for me, to stretch my legs, and I want to write some stuff outside of horror as well. I wrote, as a matter of fact, a few years ago, it might even be 10 years ago, I wrote a story that after I was done with it, I was like, wow, this is just so starkly different from anything I've written. I don't know what to do with it. And once the whole e-publishing thing started for me, I decided, hey, let me put this out. It was a story called County Road, and it's about someplace in the South, some made up town in the South.
Sure.
The sheriff is he's at his retirement party. It's supposed to be his last day as being the sheriff in this town, and he's been the peacemaker, because like 30 years before he had to shoot somebody, and it haunted him since then. And he even got to a point where he couldn't even load his gun because he was just afraid of it. It was just this thing that was just attached to his body because he had to have it. But many times he didn't even load it, and he was afraid of a circumstance happening where he would have to pull his gun. But come his retirement day, and there was this little boy, this black boy, who he kind of mentored, because he could see, hey, nothing good is going to happen for this kid if someone doesn't step in and help him. And so, he comes to this place. He found this boy a job working at this general store, a gas station general store, and the proprietor's trying to say, hey, this kid stole from me. He took money from me. And the boy's like, no, I didn't. You count that money up in the drawer, it'll be exactly what it's supposed to be. And it winds up where things get heated, and the boy's like, hey, I'm about to run away and go find this girl I've been in love with since I was like 12. And the weird thing about that story was, every day the boy, before he would go home, he would go and work at the store. But nobody could figure out, how was this boy getting from school to the store when it's several miles away, when people couldn't even drive there in that same amount of time. And at the end of the story, the sheriff sees that this boy can run lightning fast. And, he has sparks flying off his feet. He runs so fast. And so that was how the story ended. It's like the sheriff had his gun pulled. I can't even remember why now. And he's telling boys, like, no, you have to come with me. You can't leave. And the boy's like, look, I'm going. You do what you got to do. I'm doing what I got to do. I'm getting out of here. And that was how the story ended. It's like the boy ran, and the sheriff said, hey, I got to do the right thing this time, and I can't shoot this person for not doing anything wrong. Mm-hmm. And that was the story. And that was something that wasn't horror. It was just odd. I liked it. I might revisit it someday and see if there's more to be done in that town.
And then now, do you do any series work, or each one of your stories unique?
I haven't written any sequels yet. Wait, let me just dial through my head here. I got for my experimental stuff, I write under a pen name, Gerald, and I have something called the Return series. And when I wrote the first story, there was just something odd. There was this woman who was trapped in the closet with her newborn baby, and there are zombies wandering around inside her house and they haven't sensed her yet. And, she's figuring, okay, if I have to break out of here, how can I get past them and out the door? And she just keeps running through these scenarios in her head, how much time she could actually run before they blocked her, stopped her, grabbed her, whatever it was. And that turned into something else by the time I was done writing that story. And I became interested. And I was like, well, what else is going on in this world? And what it is it's not just one world. It's like two worlds where one is dying and one is our world, but they're interlinked, and people keep jumping back and forth. Whereas this woman, she thought she was in one place and she was in another. And, she thought her husband was dead, but lo and behold, by story's end, he's been looking for her. So she's confused, like, hey, what happened? And anybody who reads the story will say, I don't get it. What just happened? But
sure.
as you read I have 3 installments of it out right now. The second one is this pastor. He just walks through the wrong door one day, and he's on the other side, and there's all kinds of creatures in this place that some of them have human body parts, and he comes across these 3 people, this old man, this boy, and this child, and they take him hostage for a little while because they call him a rev. There's a different lingo over in this place. They call him a rev, and revs are supposed to have special powers as far as they're concerned. So he's wondering, like, I don't think I am what they think I am.
Right.
And then in the third one, you find that there are groups of survivors in this place, and the third one is called the bargain. Every month, in order to retain safe passage, the leader of the group has to name one person to die by the hands of one of these creatures. And, that's the only way that it will guarantee safe passage, that he has to walk through his people and point to someone. But what he finds out is that it's not death. It's death so far as anybody can see, but once on the other side of that, you see what it really is. So sure. I'm still exploring what this series is. I'm not sure where exactly it's going, but I think it's going to be like I'm giving you something that you think you're reading, and it's going to be something else by the time you come to the end of it.
Well, I mean, that's always good to be able to put good irony in there and a misdirected ending, because it makes it for a better story and people remember it more. Let's talk a little bit about your process. I mean, how do you go about sitting down, creating something new, and then executing it?
It happens for me in different ways. I rarely sit down with the intention of creating a certain type of story. For me, it tends to be an idea that pops into my head, and I'll just think about it, and I'll write down certain quirky things about it and flesh it out later. Or sometimes, a full-blown story will jump into my head. Like with Fleshbags. One day I was just sitting at work, and I think the title came to mind, and everything just happened from there. I had the whole thing plotted out in like 15 minutes. It was just one of those, how someone will say, how a musician will say, I wrote that song in 15 minutes or a half hour, and it's like one of their bigger hits. For me, it was like that. It was the one that just popped into my head, and it was effortless to write. I think I'd written the first draft of that in 2 weeks' time. But,
Sounds great.
I decided I wanted to write a vampire story, and I had a basic idea that popped in my head, and I wrote a short story, and I said, okay, I want to turn that short story, the characters in that short story, I want to tell their whole story. And the short story I had posted on my website is called Do Not See Me. It's about this guy and his buddies were holding these people hostage in this building or this house. I'm not sure what that was yet. And all of a sudden, this guy wakes up in the back of a police car, and he's like, "Well, I don't know how that happened." And then,
man, if I had a nickel for every, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He makes eye contact with the police officer who gets in the car, and the police officer essentially tells him, "Hey, I'm a vampire. I glamored you, and you just blanked out. And now that you're locked in the back of my police car, I'm going to drive off and go do whatever I want to do with you." And so, that's one that I've kind of written some ideas down on, but it was one of those ones that is going to take work. It's not one of those ones where I can just effortlessly, flawlessly write it out.
Spin it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the idea came to you while you were at work. What kind of work do you do normally?
I work for.
You don't have to name them if you don't want to.
No, I'm thinking the best way to say it, because it's not a simple thing. I work for a contractor for a city. We've taken over some of their services.
Oh, the whole privatization kick in Detroit?
No, not there. I actually work in a suburb, and
okay.
Hopefully we might be coming to Detroit, but we're not there.
Yeah. And so you felt that you could just take this idea while you're at work and then not do your work and work on this. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm entitled to breaks. I took a break.
Well, and I'm. That is so hypocritical of me to say that, because I was supposed to be working at a not-for-profit, so that's even worse. I was editing some documents at a not-for-profit when I decided to put together the plot for my very first book. So I don't want to sound so highfalutin about that, but it is good that, obviously you take inspiration whenever inspiration comes. A lot of people forget. Some people have, man, I had the greatest dream. This would be the greatest story, and then how transient dreams are. Once you wake up, if you don't write it down, oftentimes you just forget. So, at least it sounds like you're able to keep track of your better ideas, right?
Yeah. I've forgotten some great ones too, though, because I've done a lot of ideas in my head. It's like, oh, I'll remember it, and I'll write that down later. And then you sit down at the table, and you're like, what was that idea? That really, really good idea I had. And so now, I'm at a point where there's no excuse, because, I got my smartphone and I can leave myself notes. I put the Google Drive app on my phone, so I can write anytime I want now. And if I don't have time to write the whole thing, I can just start a new document in Google Drive, and I can just dictate whatever thoughts and come back to it later. And I've done that a few times. I got a couple things that I'm really excited about that I'm looking forward to writing once I get some other things out of the way first. And I never need to forget another idea anymore.
Right. Well, and a lot of people should kind of listen to this, because there are so many tools out there these days that can help you be productive. I had an idea that I just never did anything about, and somebody ran with it. I had this bespectacled preteen who was in this world of magic with wizards and things like that. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and some woman, who used to live in her car named Rawling, she went and ran with it. And now look, here I am sitting in my house doing this show, and she's got more money than God. So yeah, all joking aside, though, using all of the tools available, I just started using the dictaphone, or at least the recording part of my phone, because when I do think of something, I'm just as guilty as anybody else in forgetting it or whatever. So now I've gotten in the habit of, on all my computers, I have like Evernote. So if I want to do some notes, I can log in. And the same thing you do with Google Drive. What other do you use any other kinds of writing tools? Anything you want to share with us?
Let me share with you my evolution of writing. Like anybody, I used to get notebooks. Like I'd have a school notebook that I hadn't completely filled up, or I'd go out and buy one of those black and white hardcover notebooks. I can't remember.
Yeah, like those composition books.
Yeah, those. I would buy them, and I heard about something called a Neo a few years ago. Someone had blogged about it or posted on Facebook about it, something like that. And I researched and I was like, wow, I really like this. This looks really cool. And what it is if you write on your computer or your laptop, that is a humongous distraction because you've got solitaire, you've got internet, you've got all kinds of other things that could take away your attention, email, all these other things that could pull you away from actually writing. So what the Neo word processor is, it is really basic. It looks like it walked straight out of 1985, and it probably looked exactly. They probably had some that looked exactly the same as the ones now, and all you can do on it is write. You can't do anything else with it. You can't email. You can't cruise the internet. It doesn't even have. All it has is a text screen, a little bitty text screen where you write on, and you can have up to, I think, 16 files on it.
Okay.
And for a while, I was using that faithfully. I mean, and I still have it, and I probably will still use it. But it got to a point where, in this day and age where everything is smaller, faster, can do more than ever before, once I switched from my little Envy phone to my first smartphone that I got a couple years ago, I discovered that on my smartphone there's an app on it called Quick Office. Now, I could create files in there, and I could email them to myself so they weren't always trapped in my phone. And it even had a little dictating feature in there that on my old phone that was terrible because it got every other word wrong. But, I could do it. But,
sure.
If I were just sitting around, if I were out somewhere and I wanted to jot down some thoughts, or if I wanted to write something, I could do that. I could just, thumb it. And, come last year, my wife gets me the new phone, and I started using Quick Office. All of a sudden, the app is a whole lot more attractive because it gets maybe every 8th word wrong, or every 9th word, but for the most part, it's able to capture what it is I'm saying. And then what was even better, I find Google Drive so that I have the app on my phone, I dictate whatever I need to dictate, then I go to a computer. The thing that I just dictated is right there on the computer, and that's any computer. So now I'm hooked on Google Drive, and that's why I wanted to do my little experiment that I posted on my website, where I wrote a 9,000-something word story using, for the most part, just my smartphone. And I wrote probably 90 to 95% of it on my smartphone, maybe a little bit on computer, and then I just went back over it and edited the whole thing on the computer just to take out the certain things that I couldn't do on my smartphone. And I'm hooked on it. I mean, that's going to be a major component of my writing. I still need to sit down to do a healthy amount of writing because when I first started doing the whole dictating thing, I found myself freezing up a lot, whereas I flow naturally when I'm typing. My thoughts, I guess, arrange themselves better when I'm sitting at a computer.
Sure.
And maybe it was just a matter of me being more comfortable because I find that I'm better at it now than what I was maybe a month ago. And it's just something that anybody who has a smartphone, if you are a writer, definitely get the Google Drive app. Definitely. It will give you a huge advantage to your writing. Like I said, I started writing the story last Friday. I was done with it last Wednesday, and that includes editing it.
You might want to, have you blogged these kinds of things that for your process, have you blogged these kinds of things on your site?
Oh, absolutely. I blogged, I think I called it Why I Switched to Google Drive. And I went through the whole process that I just told you, how I used to do the Neo and then how I upgraded to different things as far as writing. And, yeah, I talked about that on my blog. I mean, it's hugely beneficial.
Sure. And for those who would like to take a look at, some of the things that you have blogged and, want to know a little bit more about Gerald himself, Gerald Dean, it's razorlinepress.com, all one word, razorlinepress.com. And, he has a multitude of things up here, including, the information about the ebook on how to e-publish. And just being able to read something like that, I think, is going to save people a lot of time and a lot of money. I like the fact that you are not technology challenged and that you go and you take full advantage of what technology can do for you as a writer. Not everybody is that facile, and for those who want to get a little more information about the process that Gerald just talked about, go ahead and check out his blog at razorlinepress.com. You're listening to Genesis Science Fiction Radio, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the June 14th, 2013 edition, and we have the good fortune to be speaking to Gerald Rice. Would you consider yourself, almost like a pretty good, close to expert on e-publishing, Gerald?
Right now, I mean, it's something that is simple enough to master to the point where anybody who's interested in becoming proficient at it can be.
And so, to that note, people take a look at what he's got on his site, and also you might want to look at his offerings at Amazon. Just put his name in. I think there's a few Gerald Rices, but let's try. You go by Gerald Dean Rice, so put in Gerald Dean Rice, and you'll come up to what he has to offer on Amazon. Do you have a pretty good relationship with Amazon right now, Gerald?
Yeah, I would say I do.
And what's the tell people a little bit about how that relationship built, how you got started, how it built, and the pros and the cons of it, if there are any cons, because a lot of people have yet to publish, and I think that would be of interest to the people who are listening.
Pros, I would say that there are so many ways that Amazon just puts right out there for you to promote your work. From keywording to associating your book with other books, with other books. I always say you should be your own first customer. Buy your book, so that other books that you have bought. Say if you buy your book and you've also bought a Harry Potter book, or maybe not Harry Potter, because that's a hugely popular book, but it still exists the possibility that when someone looks at that Harry Potter book, it's possible when you scroll down that Amazon will have on there customers who viewed this book, went on to buy, or also viewed, and your book could be in that list of books.
Sure.
But because you purchased both books, or you viewed both books, or whatever it is that they display down there, you can create those kinds of associations, and also your title is also keyworded. So, say if you let me explain what I mean. Say if you want to write a vampire story,
right?
And vampires are hugely popular on television and books. If your title is somehow, I don't know, like sexy vampire or something in there, and someone goes to Amazon and they want to look up sexy vampires, those words are in your title. So you might be down far on that list, or you might be high up on that list, depending on how many people have bought your book prior. But because they typed in words that are in the title to your book, your book should be in the return search list. So there are lots of things that Amazon does for you. And one thing that I'm trying to educate myself on right now is being an Amazon vendor. I want to do what do you call it? A widget, so that I can have like a display on my website of books that I like or books that I would like to read. And Amazon will let you do this for free, so that if someone goes on your site and you have this widget with all these books on it, and you click and someone clicks on one of those books on your site and purchases it, you get a portion of that. Now, that doesn't take anything away from the author. That is something that Amazon is sharing. It's not a huge amount, but it's something that still exists. And it is a way for you to make money whereas you're not the author. You're just helping Amazon to promote their books.
It's like a cooperative marketing fee.
Exactly. Now, I don't know exactly how it works, and I don't think it's exactly compatible with my website, so I might need to migrate over to a new site at some point. But, I'm currently an Amazon vendor. I just have to pull the trigger on getting the rest of it done.
So, I would imagine, and when you talk about a widget, basically you're talking about background programming of the site. And that's a huge consideration for people, too, who want to self-promote. If you're going to go the Amazon route, then taking a close look at a lot of these advantages that Amazon can offer you as an Amazon published author should be forefront in your mind in terms of marketing, because why cut off your nose to spite your face by maybe making a bad decision? Again, that goes back to what I said at the beginning, that a lot of creative people are not very business savvy, but it is, especially today when there's so many choices, where people are looking in so many different places, where you've got so much electronic stimulation out there, doing your marketing has to be a very, very focused, very direct process. And for you to even say that you're considering maybe even moving your site so that you can have a web hosting service that can support the kind of widgets that you want to do the cooperative marketing with Amazon, that's a very straight up, strictly business decision, but it is done in the service of advancing your own work, correct?
Exactly. And I would have my own book in those widgets as well. So, I can make the portion that Amazon would pay me as an author and as a vendor. Yeah.
And you mentioned that the ebook, I guess it is a contract. The ebook contract that you signed with Amazon was not one that gave Amazon the right to your work in perpetuity. Something that I would recommend that everybody, always, I don't care who you are. If you're not a lawyer, if you're a writer and you're listening to this show, don't think you're as smart as a lawyer. Get somebody smart to look at your contracts, whether they be big or small, because what you're doing is you're protecting yourself. And you know what? You could be costing yourself money by not paying attention to what your contracts say. Do you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but who does your due diligence for you, Gerald?
Actually, with my first contract, I did consult an attorney to make sure that there was nothing that was saying that, hey, I'm giving away my baby.
Right.
But I didn't have that concern with Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Smashwords. None of them are asking for exclusive rights. When I publish a book on Amazon, I can turn around and publish it on Barnes & Noble. I can turn around and publish it on Smashwords. At no point is it ever perceived that they are in business with me to that degree. It's you publish. We are your publisher for this book on this site alone. That's it.
Something that you and I crossed blogging about. There was the blurb that announced that Amazon is going to be creating fan fiction sites.
The fiction.
And go ahead.
I know your position on it, but I think it's a cool idea in the respect that.
Well, wait. Let me explain it to people before we get into it, because they may not have read it. Essentially, what Amazon is doing is they're going to license people's works, mostly writing, and then from that license, they're going to allow fans to write fictional pieces in someone else's creative universe, and pay the fans a fee if their work is downloaded or in some way, helps Amazon make money. And the blurb I saw was very short, and it was not very demonstrative of exactly what the conditions would be, what the licensing fees would be, and things like that. And, my first take at it, it's funny because Gerald and I went round and round about this, but we can't really resolve it until we look at those contracts. Have you seen any of those contracts, Gerald?
No, and I'm actually on their newsletter for it because I am interested in getting more information. I do want to know, hey, what degree is it?
And essentially it would be like if you decided to write, it's talking about the editorial you, not you specifically, Gerald, but if you wanted to write a fictional story set in the Twilight universe, if Amazon had paid whoever wrote that stuff, I don't even know. Whoever, I'm sorry?
Stephanie Meyer.
Yeah, if they had given or cut a deal with Stephanie Meyer about allowing fans to create in her world, that these fans could conceivably make money off of what they wrote, and Stephanie, was it your impression? Yeah, they did say that they would license that, didn't they?
Yes, they would.
So she would be getting a fee initially, but again, since we don't have the nuts and bolts to it, but go ahead and tell us your thoughts about that.
Well, my thought was, if Amazon were to approach Stephanie Meyer about doing that, Stephanie has every right to say, okay, well, this is what you're going to pay me, either a flat fee or per work fee. And,
sure.
Amazon rejects or accepts that. So if she's getting what she wants and then someone turns around, they write a fan fiction piece that makes millions of dollars, then everyone is compensated what they were already agreed to as compensation. I would understand it from I would perceive it as wrong from the perspective of if Amazon was somehow skirting the licensing process and not paying the originator, the original content creator, but it didn't strike me as being the case. Now,
oh no, and I didn't see it that way either. I admit that I didn't see it that way. I just thought that let's take an example of let's say I wrote a vampire book, and although it may not hit big from the beginning, I felt that because of Amazon's marketing muscle, that I could be induced to maybe signing a less than favorable agreement. And again, it's buyer beware, right, Gerald?
Exactly.
If I signed a less than advantageous deal, licensing deal, and all of a sudden, there's millions of dollars flowing to somebody else on the basis of my work, and I'm getting pennies on the dollar, I thought that merely because Amazon being Amazon, that there was potential for abuse, as there would be with anything. So again, this falls under the buyer beware, read your contract, figure out what you're going to do. And to what you said, admittedly, if you don't like it, then don't sign it. Don't let people do it, correct?
Exactly. And you can also look at it from the other perspective too. What if Amazon pays out some huge licensing deal to someone and they don't get anything out of it? Then Amazon is just out of that money.
Right.
It's a risk on both sides, really.
Yeah. No. And again, if we were to be entirely honest about the whole internet universe, right now there's a huge. I mean, the main battle lines have been drawn, and they're between Amazon and Google in terms of who wants to own the majority of the content that will be fed to people for the next millennium. And
right.
and that's the deal. You got these two behemoths really slugging it out. You know, Google started the whole we're going to go and digitize all the books that don't require a license for us to do so and provide that content to people's desktops. And Amazon is Amazon. Amazon is huge. I mean, they don't really make a huge profit on book sales or anything like that, but what they've done is they have so captured the eyes and the habits of so many people out there that they are like these two are battling it out to see who is going to have the supremacy of your attention and your eyes on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. And as of right now, I think Google is standing in their own way a little bit on some of that because they have the Play Store where you can also buy books, and I've tried to use their site, and it is not user friendly so far as authors or independent authors who want to upload their books. I created my account for them over a year ago, and I have never been able to use it because it's just clunky. It doesn't make sense. I uploaded a couple titles on there, and I never saw them in their actual store.
Mm-hmm.
And I contacted their help desk, and they said, well, there was something that I didn't have set up properly, and it certainly wasn't obvious to me how that should be set up. I mean, they need to do a whole lot to simplify the process. In my opinion, they're unnecessarily reinventing the wheel. I mean, it's one thing to do things differently than everyone else. It's another thing to do things solely for the purpose of doing it differently, because there's different good and there's different bad. And right now, in my opinion, Google's is different bad. If they change that, then they can definitely catch up by a lot, because I definitely want. I mean, it's Google. The biggest
Absolutely.
So, I mean, who doesn't know about it? Who wouldn't want to use it? And if you're an author, if you're an established author or a new author, who would not want to be able to team up with Google to sell books?
Right, and the problem is Google's entire business model, no matter what service, no matter what level of service you have, unless you are a paying business customer, the chances of you getting a live person on the phone who can help you out with any problem with any Google product are slim and none, and most of the time Slim's out of town. So if you do not have a face-to-face interface for doing business, and Google is horrible at that, or at least maybe, no, I take that back. Maybe they're brilliant at it because what they do is they don't have to spend any money on call centers or people who are knowledgeable about things, but they are a pain in the butt to try to deal with. And I believe you're right. You're right, Gerald, that if they are going to at all challenge the supremacy of Amazon in terms of customer service, in terms of products offered, in terms of sales, just sales alone, straight sales of commodities, they're going to have to copy someone else's business model because their current one doesn't serve the public.
Mm-hmm. And my opinion is someone needs to copy. If you're going to copy anybody's business model, copy Smashwords. Smashwords is great in the respect that you can go to one site, upload your book, and then have it hit, like 8 different websites. Say if I just don't have the patience. I don't want to upload my book on 3 different websites. You can just go to Smashwords and be done. So long as you don't mind only getting paid quarterly and getting payment reports quarterly, you can do that. You can go to Smashwords. You can have it there, and then use their channel manager, and Smashwords will distribute your book to Kobo, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Sony, iTunes, Diesel, whatever Diesel is, Baker and Taylor, and libraries can go to Smashwords to buy your book. So,
yeah, tell people, describe Smashwords a little bit more. Describe their business model and the process you went through when you and you did use them, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The process you went through to go ahead and get your work done with Smashwords.
Mm-hmm. I forget how I heard about them, but essentially I talk about in my book that you want to do Smashwords first, because once your book is formatted for Smashwords, your book is formatted. You don't need to do any more formatting. I mean, Amazon is a little bit more flexible. They can take a little bit more errors in it. But Smashwords you can upload your book and it'll be available on Smashwords, but they will reject it for their premium distribution, because there are certain things that you have to do to make it to their liking.
Sure.
You gotta put certain things at the beginning. You gotta put I call it a manuscript prefix. That's my terminology. That's not theirs. But you gotta have that manuscript prefix where you have the title, you have your legal disclaimers, things like that. You gotta have that at the beginning. You gotta have it formatted in the way that they want. And once you have it formatted in the way they want, the only thing you need to do is reversion it for Nook and Amazon, where you replace the word Smashwords with Nook and Kindle, and upload it on their respective sites. But say if you don't want to do all that, you just want to do Smashwords, you format it the way they want it formatted, then you go to their website and you're already on the website, but you assign an ISBN. You want a free ISBN. Never pay for an ISBN for an ebook, because they don't matter. That's one thing that I found out too, that nobody cares about ISBNs for ebooks. But you assign a free ISBN for it, and you go to your channel manager and you either opt in or you opt out of the websites where you want your book to be distributed. Once they're done with their vetting process of your book, they distribute to all those websites. And then every quarter, you show immediately if someone buys your book off Smashwords. But every quarter, you get a report showing you got so many purchases from Kobo, this many from iTunes, like that, and they pay you on the quarter once you hit $10, I believe, and they pay you to PayPal.
Well, that's nice. I mean, here's why I like this business model, because a lot of people don't take the time to do their due diligence to get their book formatted well. Hell, if we were to be very honest, a lot of people don't even edit their work, or they'll do a very haphazard job of it. And it sounds to me like what this does is it forces you to adhere to at least some very reasonable but very regimented publication standards, which in the long run benefits the author, I would say, because if you do, like you said, if you get it formatted for the one, it is transportable with very little changes for any other service or any other publisher, e-publisher, correct?
Correct. And I will tell you that I have looked into, because I like being able to check my my sales immediately. That's why I like uploading to Amazon and Nook directly myself. I looked into Sony and I looked into Apple, and unless you have a long list of books, they don't want to talk to you. They don't want to deal with the individual independent authors who maybe put out 4 or 5 titles a year. They want to deal in volume, and so that's why they like Smashwords. Every day someone's uploading it. Well, not someone. Many people are uploading new titles every day on Smashwords.
And let's see, I would just guess that's www.smashwords.com, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And another thing I really like about Smashwords is you can set up sub-accounts. I have myself set up to where I am Razorline Press on Smashwords, and if I were publishing on the behalf of other people, I can create sub-accounts so that when I upload a new title, I can say that that belongs under sub-account for Gerald Rice, or that belongs under the sub-account for Bob Smith, or whomever.
Sure.
And each of the three sites do something a little bit different than the others, and some of those things are good. Smashwords is definitely the king, and they offer you different avenues to promote. Smashwords is really good because you have the option of having your book go to sites that you don't have access to. And what is Nook? Nook is good for something. Give me a second. They're good because, oh man, well, of the three, they're the only ones with a physical store component. But that doesn't really make a difference for you if you have an ebook. But they're good too. I'm not trying to say anything negative about them. After Kindle, I sell books, most of my
Sure.
books on Nook. So it's Kindle, Nook, Smashwords when it comes to sales for me.
Which begs the question: do you publish other writers yet?
I am nearing that. I would
Okay.
like to become a full service publisher because I do editing. I've done editing for other authors, and I want to be able to offer people something better than what I think is currently out there. I know there are publishing companies that do offer better than 10%, but 10% seems to be the going rate.
Sure.
I would want authors to be a partner with me. 10%, that's more like an employee-employer relationship. I want us to be partners.
Right.
Okay, in exchange for me buying the cover for your book and editing your work and doing some promotion, maybe I take 60% or 70%, but 10%, that to me is on the point of insulting. And
Yeah.
like, you spend a year or more of your life writing this book, and then I turn around and say, okay, I'll give you 10% of everything you sell.
Yeah.
No, I think it should be more of a partnership relationship, and I that's one thing that I want to do. I'm still trying to figure out the details on and dragging my feet about it right now. But that's something that I do want to do, so that and honestly, what I would like to have happen is, okay, I'm your publisher for your first book, but I'm only your publisher one time. I get you up to speed on what you need to do to be your own publisher in the future. Because
and then that makes me ask, the one question you said earlier, that there are so many people out there taking advantage of newbie writers in that they're charging fees for layout work that they could easily do themselves.
exactly.
There's going to be a segment of the population out there that will I would say be more than likely to ask you to do that service for two reasons. One is, if I come to you and I say, hey, Gerald, here's what I want you to do. I want you to format these two manuscripts for e-publishing because I know not only do you have the experience, but that you'll do it right. And then you're going to say to me, yeah, but you could do that yourself. And I could go, well, I almost said a bad word. But I would say, look, I'm coming to you because you are providing me with a valuable service. And I think that, even though you mentioned that it's not something that you would do, that you want people to learn how to do it themselves, if you're going to be a fulfillment house of some kind, for the publishing industry, especially for e-publishing, there's probably going to be a segment of the population out there that's going to trust you to squire the process more than they would trust somebody else. So, you may end up having to do some of those services that you really think that somebody who's got two brain cells to rub together should be able to do themselves.
I get it. I feel like there are always going to be people who say, I just can't do it. You're always going to have people who are like that. And I perfectly accept that. There are easy things that I could be doing in other aspects that, I just throw my hands up and say, I got no interest in doing that.
Right.
And so a service like that is for someone in that situation. And, I'm not in the habit of turning down money. You want to give me money to do something that's super easy to do? Okay, I'll do that. I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing against.
No, and I didn't mean it so badly like that. I probably stated it badly, but what I'm saying is, you have published about e-publishing.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that a lot of people don't know nearly as much as you know about, and obviously there's a market for that kind of expertise. And I'm not talking about, a slave market or take advantage of other people's market, but, people who just sat down and did their first book, to be able to at least consult with you and say, here's what I'm thinking, what do you think? And the other part is you being an editor. I mean, that's a pretty cool combination, because what you're going to be able to do is you may become a one-stop shop for e-publishing, and there's obviously a need for that.
Right, and that's how, in my mind, I would be setting myself apart from someone who just formats and publishes. I would try to be full service. It's like, okay, I'm not just taking the book that you're giving me. I'm taking it, I'm reading it, I'm giving it an actual edit so that I can correct those errors that you may have missed. I would also be, going out and getting the cover for it. Finding the proper artist, paying that artist however much it costs to generate that cover, and then, putting together a marketing plan as to what I'm going to do to get the word out about your book. That's sure, that's stuff that anybody can do, but if you bring all that in house, that does have a value too. Now, I do think that is different than someone just takes a book, puts it online.
Right. Somebody mentioned that based upon this interview, there would probably be people who would trust you to squire them through that process just on your stated ethics alone. The fact that, well, yes, you could do this yourself and you shouldn't have to pay somebody to do it, but, yes, I'll help you do it, but you want to be more than that. You would like to be a full-service shop, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would like to get to that point where, I can be end-to-end and just, guide people through the process and steer them around the bumps that I ran into when I was figuring everything out.
Yeah. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is the June 14th, 2013 edition, and we're talking to Gerald Rice, who has published several works of his own, but has great value, as we have heard, in talking about the e-publishing process and some of the pitfalls of it. And so for those of you who are listening now and know somebody who may be in that, in the neighborhood of getting their own works published and they have not listened, I want to remind people that this broadcast is also available, as are the others, as a podcast. So if people have missed this broadcast, they can check out Gerald's excellent advice online after the show is completed. Where do you think you're going to be 5 years from now, Gerald?
5 years from now. I don't expect a tremendous amount to change for me in 5 years. What I would like to be is writing full-time for myself and, pretty much doing whatever I want to do.
Sure.
I want to steer the genre I'm writing in some new direction that, maybe I haven't quite figured out. I want to be published in a few other genres. I've already had ideas for things that I'm going to write that are not horror related at all. I'd like to get to a point where I could write a manuscript for television series or a movie. I would like to have that experience at least. I remember I don't know if NBC still has it, but they had this commitment to diversity thing on their website, and they wanted to hear from voices from different cultures and backgrounds, and they said, okay, take any television series on television and write us a script for it, and we'll review it and see. And I wrote one for Medium, and it was the very first one I'd ever done. I liked it, but by the same token, it was the very first one I'd ever done, and I didn't even know if I was properly formatting the teleplay, and I was sending it. And of course, NBC promptly canceled Medium, and it wound up going to CBS, so that went right out the window. But
I don't think it was your fault, though. So, I mean, I don't want you to feel that you had something to do with that. Yeah, and then the bigger picture for NBC is, of course, are they in fourth or fifth place now? I think they're in fifth place behind the three other networks plus Telemundo and Univision.
Oh, wow.
So, there may be opportunity there. There may not be opportunity there.
Yeah, I remember NBC used to be the television station you turned on when you turned on TV.
Right. Well, we're a long way past the Cosby days, aren't we?
I mean, who wasn't watching NBC on Thursday nights?
Absolutely. They own the night. And, how, I don't want to say the mighty, but, you think of the phrase, how the mighty have fallen. Perhaps diversity is something they should take a better look at. Okay, so maybe a teleplay. How about do you have any leanings toward doing screenplay?
I'd love to do a screenplay. I guess I'm thinking more baby steps, but I would absolutely love to. There's one of the things. It's going to be my pet project. I want to acquire the rights to a certain comic book character that I love from the '90s. That he's currently not active. They don't.
Sure.
He's not in the comic book, and I want to try to find the author, the creator of the comic, and say, hey, what would it take for you to give me the rights to this character? What I need to buy him from you? Will you just give him? Because you're not doing anything with him. He's not producing any comics with his character in it. So I want to get this comic book character from him, and I want to do something with it. And I realized that a story that I wrote recently, when I really examined it, it was based on this character. And I really, really want this character very, very badly. And someday I will figure out a way to get it. But I think he's one of those quirky, creative types, and it may be that no matter what I could possibly say or do, that I would never get the rights from him for this character.
Well, what about the possibility of you creating something similar but not an exact copy? I mean, do you think that your creative bent would push you in that direction, sufficiently hard enough that you could become your own content creator in terms of comic books?
Oh, I could definitely do that. That was like I said before, that was my obsession in high school. I wanted to write comic books. Someday, someday I would like to write an issue of Superman. I got ideas for that. It was like I would love to take Superman in an entirely different direction. I want to bring back. I don't know how familiar you are with comic books at all. I want to bring back Icon.
Really?
I have an idea for Icon, and my opinion, it would be great, but I don't know anybody.
Sure.
But I would love to bring back Icon. I actually collected that comic book, the first, dozen or so issues of it, and I thought it was a really cool spin on the Superman mythos, and I would like to see him come back.
Oh man, have you ever written anything? I know you've done short stories, but have you thought about doing your own comics other than using derivatives of other people's work? Yes. I just have never sat down to do anything with it seriously because I don't
really know anybody who is an artist. And, you know, a thing that kind of bugs me that I see a lot is people trying to get other people to hop onto their dream for free. You see that like a lot on Craigslist where people will say, hey, be my writing partner and I'll give you a percentage of the profits if we ever make anything. It's like, well, I could be potentially giving up to, maybe a year of my life to help you with your dream and then get absolutely nothing out of it at the end of it. I'm not a fan of that. And, you know, I would want to ask someone, hey, hop on board with my dream. I have no idea if I'm ever going to make any money off of this. You know, I'm not at a point where I can pay an artist however much. Cause I know the good ones can turn a pretty penny.
Sure.
So,
well, I mean, there's a lot of creative artists on even BlackScienceFictionSociety.com, and you know, finding someone with whom you can create a collaborative work shouldn't be that difficult. You know, if that's the way you want to go. I mean, you've got a lot of irons in the fire, and you know, if you decide to go ahead and push yourself into being, you know, a fulfillment house for publishers and providing publishing services, consultation, editing, you know, all of the things that go along with that. You know, not to say that you're not going to have enough time, but that's quite a spread of work that you've kind of laid out for yourself.
Yeah. I think for me, I had writer's block once, and you know that was a pretty rough patch for me. I had some things going on. I'd been laid off from work, and just from the stress of it, I just couldn't write at all. That once I broke out of that, I was like, you know what? I want to cast as many irons in the fire as I possibly can.
Sure. Yeah, I had writer's block once, and I was talking to somebody on the phone, and all of a sudden I had an idea, and I hung up on her and didn't talk to her for 2 days, and man, did I have to pay some heavy dues behind that. Now, do you, in your process now, when you go through your writing process now, you said you're more regimented about it, you're more organized about it, you get your ideas, you record the ideas, you get them on paper as soon as possible. Do you find yourself less caught up in problematic things like writer's block? Do you find yourself not having the kind of, you know, the trials and tribulations of having to kind of overcome that difficulty because you're more facile and more experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've jot down so many ideas. At any point, if I don't feel like writing the thing I'm currently working on, I always have something else I can fall back on. I like to, and sometimes writing two things at once helps both projects. Whereas, you know, you might feel like you're running out of gas, you can recharge yourself by writing the other thing. You know, that's one of the tricks that works for me.
Right. And then, you know, going back to the thing about, you had mentioned your pet peeve about seeing people trying to get you to invest in their dreams. Do you think that if the right collaborative project came along, you'd be able to work effectively with somebody else?
Oh, absolutely. If someone had a project that I could in turn believe in, you know,
sure.
if I'm coming on strictly from the end of it that, hey, this is going to make money, then I'm more or less an employee who may or may not ever get paid. Whereas if it's a collaboration and meeting of ideas, and I'm really excited, I'm like, I believe in this, I want to work with this, I want to see this come to fruition, then, you know, that's entirely different in my mind. You know, I am actually currently planning a collaboration with another author who I like a lot. You know, I discovered him a few months ago, and he was just one of those people, as soon as you start reading him, you are an instant fan. And I just, after I read that, it was a short story of his. It was so quirky and odd I even knew where the story was going by the time it ended, but I still loved it anyway. I just could not help myself. I just went and just started looking up what else has this guy written. Let me get it. Then after I read this other stuff, I said, "Okay, I got to reach out to this guy. He's in the same situation as me. He's an independent author, and we're going to work on a project together. It's not just me jumping onto his dream or him jumping onto mine. We're coming together, and we're going to make something that I hope is extremely cool."
And what do you think the time frame for that might be, or are you at that point yet where you can even guess?
We're aiming for summer 2014.
Oh, that's not that far off.
No, not far off. What I really want to do, what I wanted to really give room for the both of us is, I figured, hey, we're both working on stuff right now. Let's clear the deck and then focus on this.
And do they happen to live in Detroit with you, or are they a ways
Nope.
away?
That's the beautiful thing about social media. He lives in Georgia.
Yeah. Well, I think it might have been a month ago. We had a collaborative duo on, and one lives in Canada and one lives here in the U.S., and they've never even met each other.
Right.
And that's, I think that more than anything else, and you could almost call it like social media, but it's not so much the media part, but the internet does facilitate relationships that couldn't occur any other way.
Right. If it had not been for Facebook and Twitter, I would have never been able to contact them.
Mm-hmm. And okay, you mentioned that you're married. How does that work out? Does she help you? Is your wife kind of a collaborative? Well, does she have a good ear for you? Does she play a role in your creativity?
My wife is on the other end of it. She is that business person who can keep the business stuff on track. I'm more or less the one who wants to, slide out of the chair and slink out of the room when it comes to business, and she's the one who keeps everything on track. She's the one who says, okay, we gotta have a marketing plan, we gotta come up with means of promotion, we gotta everything business. That's her. She can tell me end to end everything we need to do, and she's excellent at that. And that frees me up some, so I can focus more on the creating. And she can say, okay, now that you created, you need to go over there. You need to go in that direction. You need to do that.
That's a pretty cool partnership to develop because, obviously it's working for you. You're doing well. What does she think about your success and where you are? Is she pushing you to, in any directions, or is she just very supportive? I'm just curious.
My wife is very supportive. We were married shortly into our college careers, and with me dropping out and not knowing what I was doing, what I wanted to do, even she saw that I felt lost, and once she graduated, that's when she turned to me and said, okay, now it's time for you to go to school. Now it's time for you to get your degree in what it is you want to do. And she's been the one who's pushed me. She's definitely by far in a way my biggest supporter. And without her in the picture, I think I'd still be a writer, but I don't know that I would. I don't know if I would have been able to come through the challenges I've gone through the same way. I'd be a different kind of writer. I don't know what kind of writer I would be right now.
That's great, and that is, I think, what maybe the kind of relationship most everybody would like to have. When I first started out as a computer consultant with my own company, my then wife kept calling it playing on the computer. Well, she did. That's one of the reasons why she's, well, never mind. But it's good. To have that kind of support obviously goes a long way, and it can can be pretty uplifting when things are not optimal. If you had your druthers, do you think you would be a publishing magnate of some kind, or are you going to try to balance, if you do become a full-on publisher and you start helping other people, are you going to try to balance, your own writing with that and still try to put out, like you said, a book a year or a couple books a year or whatever? How do you think that's all going to work out if you're going to become, like a consultant to other people?
Well, for me, I would never want to be so big into the publishing where I didn't have time for my own.
Sure.
I definitely want to have balance there. Sometimes I don't feel like writing, but I have never had an issue with editing. I can do that anytime. So I feel like there could be a healthy balance for me where, I'm editing 6 months, I'm writing 6 months, and, kind of intertwine that. But I would like to get to a point where I can churn out a couple of my own titles, maybe a book and a short story or a couple of short stories, and help somebody else publish theirs, publish 1 to 2 books that aren't mine.
And if people, how interactive are you with fans, with people with inquiries and things like that on your website? Do you get into decent dialogues with other people if they come to you with a problem, or even if they have a critique or laud your work at Razorline Press? Can people get hold of you there? And
absolutely. I have on my editing page, I have my email address there, or people can leave me comments on my webpage. If you can leave a comment response to one of my blog posts and get a hold of me that way. I always respond to comments, except for the spam. I just delete the spam. But if it's an actual factual human being, then you will get a response from me. You will get a response from me if you send me a message on Twitter as well, or Facebook. I can't tell you exactly how to find me on Facebook because there's at least a dozen other Gerald Rices, and I think I have mine in as the Ghost Toucher, I believe.
Okay.
I don't remember, but I believe so. But,
well, people can get to your Facebook site get to your Facebook page from your website, correct?
Yeah.
Do you have a direct link?
You can find my my fan page on Facebook and my Twitter.
Okay.
And my Twitter, they both are linked in my my website.
That's what I meant. What kinds of things do you tweet about?
I tweet about everything, and that's one thing that I learned is that you can't just constantly tweet, download my new book, download this, download that, buy this, buy that. You can't do that. That
right.
goes too many people out. Sure, do some of it because, so far as you're concerned as a writer who's also a business person, that's what it's there for. But you got to be more open and available to people. If I see something interesting on the internet and I'm cruising around on my phone, I see something interesting on the internet, I'll tweet it. And I have my Twitter and Facebook set up to where my tweets feed into my Facebook. So if I tweet it, I'm posting it on Facebook too.
Right.
I'll do that. I'll if I see an interesting news story, like I saw an article on I forget what website about Jamie Foxx is going to be Electro in the next Spider-Man movie. I tweeted that. I thought that was pretty interesting. The makeup looked pretty cool. I'll blog about stuff I'm doing. I'll
yeah,
blog.
but it sounds like you tweet and you blog about the things that are of interest to you, and people who are interested to see how your mind works or what kinds of things trip your trigger can find out by checking that out. Do you have for those who don't know how to find you, Gerald's site is Razorline Press, all one word, razorlinepress.com. And there's also links and some information about his How to Publish on Kindle, Smashwords, and Nook the Easy Way. His ebook on how to publish an ebook. If you had anything specific that you wanted to say to the people who are listening now that we may not have covered, what would it be? Besides buy your book.
We covered a lot of stuff. If you're interested in seeing a workshop on this subject matter at your local library, by all means get in contact with your local library. Direct them to my site. I'm currently doing workshops in the Metro area, but I'm not averse to travel. I'm trying to get into the Chicago Public Library, but Mr. Clive won't call me back so far.
Oh no, I've got a library. You could borrow my card if you want to get in the library down the street here in Chicago. So, and then again, I do want to remind you and remind everybody else, if you would like to check out where Gerald may be appearing, where he may be doing a workshop or something like that, I have asked him to post on the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website in the events calendar. I'm trying to get everybody who I interview to put up where they will be, what they will be doing, and whether or not there will be, availability for, discussion. Maybe you're doing a panel or something like that. So if you could go ahead and do that, then that way we know where we can find you. And then, of course, when you come down to Chicago, I'll probably buy you lunch because that's just the kind of guy I am.
Okay. I'll see you there.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you will. A free meal is always a good way to get somebody to stop by in town. Is there anything else that I've failed to cover, or that something that you might want to let the people know? We're down to about the last 3 or 4 minutes here.
Well, I am going to. Right now I'm working on my first vampire novel. Hoping to have that out around Halloweenish, if I don't get distracted by too many more side projects.
Sure.
It's called Heartbreak Hotel, and anybody who knows my writing style, I'm more into the horror comedy. I think horror and comedy are a perfect match.
Right.
And so I tend to gear toward that direction. The Dogs of City Hall on my website is absolutely devoid of any humor whatsoever. But Heartbreak Hotel is it's this guy who checks into a hotel. They won a free night stay in this hotel, and it turns out that every woman there is an ex-girlfriend of his, and they're all vampires. And so he has to battle his way down to the first floor, rescue his fiancée, and get out. So that's what the story is.
Oh, he showed up with his fiancée?
Yeah, he checks into the hotel.
Oh, man. See, now that is a nightmare. And of course, and you said you wrote this with kind of a humorous bent?
Yeah, I'm still working on it, actually. But, that's what it is. It's every woman in the hotel has been vampirized, and she's an ex-girlfriend of his.
Oh, man. Well, that sounds interesting. When do you think you might be done with that?
I want to have it out in time for Halloween.
Okay, cool. From a psychological point of view, humor is basically a mistriggered defense mechanism. So, when you take a look at that premise, I think everybody can think of a nightmarish, situation where you would show up someplace with your fiance and every other girlfriend you've had in life is also there. And when you add in, the bonus of them being a bloodsucker, I think you've written a rollicking good time there. I honestly can't wait to see that.
Yeah,
and of course go ahead.
I'm looking forward to it too, because I got the whole thing plotted, but there's bound to be some things that are going to pop up that that's the other thing. I like to also entertain myself. if I'm entertained by a story, then it's good. If a story bores me, if I'm writing a story that bores me, I jump ship. I don't hesitate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in some ways, people always say that you're your own worst critic, which forces you to up your game when you see something that just isn't working out for you. I mean, if it's not working out for you, it is hard to imagine that it's going to work out for somebody else, you know?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're coming to the end of our show tonight. I want to thank you very much for being here. This is Gerald Rice. He is an accomplished author, and he's also, you know, I would consider a fairly good expert at e-publishing. Take a look at his website. It is razorlinepress.com, razorlinepress, one word, .com. And I'm going to try to make sure that he goes and posts up where he may be appearing, where he may be doing seminars or any kind of panel discussions on the blacksciencefiction.com, no, blacksciencefictionsociety.com website. And the last part of that is for those of you who found what he had to say interesting, I encourage you to let other people know that he was on tonight's episode so that they can come and catch the podcast of this show and, you know, get some really good ideas and some really good information about e-publishing. And since we are we're rolling out of here, I you know, you got to wonder when a guy calls you my precious. I'm gonna roll it over to our beloved administrator for the last few seconds, and we're gonna call it a night.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make it brief. As always, I want to continue to thank everyone for their support and participating with us. To also share the radio show with your family, your friends, coworkers, and other nerds, assorted nerds. To please get active on the site, post videos, post your events, chime in on other people's forums and blogs. Also, check out the anthology and the magazine. Those are other items that we have on the site. And to share your Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, WordPress, whatever social media you have with us. And lastly, we want to continue to do our best to showcase the talent that's on the site. There's so much talented individuals. There's so many talented individuals on the site, and we want to continue to showcase them here on the show. And thank you again for participating, and everyone have a good night.
And thank you. This is this has been the June 14th edition of the show, 2003. Again, tell everybody about it. And for those of you who are here, anybody who wants to dial in, because I looked here, normally we have a little discussion with people who have dialed in, but nobody called in. But if anybody wants to talk to Gerald, if you have a few minutes after we stop recording, people can dial in, and we usually have a little after party where we don't worry about the PG-13 nature of our show. How's that sound?
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night, and I will hopefully be back next week with more interesting people to listen to. Have a good night, and thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
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 Thanks.
All right. Thanks.